Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Facebook Live. I think I was muted for a little bit. My goodness, isn't technology sometimes just a bear? I'm Danielle. I'm here from 4Patriots, and we love it when you join us for Facebook Lives. And I'm super excited today because I'm not here alone. I have with me Art De La Cruz from Team Rubicon, who is one of our very special organizations that we work with. Art, will you tell the folks at home a little bit about Team Rubicon and what you guys do?
Yeah, well, thank you first for having us, and really appreciate the incredible outreach and support that 4Patriots has provided throughout. I know you're in Nashville. We've had the opportunity to serve very close to you. Thanks again to donations and support from your team. But Team Rubicon is a national nonprofit. We're a disaster response organization that mobilizes military veterans to help communities prepare, respond, and recover from the natural disasters and humanitarian crises. If you can imagine a military veteran or a first responder or some of the other people who put on this same shirt, gray shirts, they have these incredible skills, education, and experience that can be brought to bear to help people on their worst day. And thank you again to your support. We're able to do that across the country and really across the world. So back to you, Danielle.
Well, that's amazing. We've been working with Team Rubicon since 2017 because we love the support that they offer. My understanding is you guys often get there even before the government shows up. You are boots on the ground, really helping people in their times of most need after environmental crisis or humanitarian crisis, or locally here in Nashville, we had a major flood that washed people's homes right out, and you guys were there helping out not only early, but later for cleanup and all that aftermath that happens after these kinds of things occur. So, I mean, you're thanking us, but really we should thank you because you guys do such great work. Now, we've been giving financial support for a long time, but I have to tell you guys, we've gotten even more invested, and it's been awesome. We have volunteers here at 4Patriots that have gotten some training on how to help Team Rubicon, even if we're not veterans, help you guys do your great work. And we even took a few guys out there to help clean up in our local efforts, and it's been awesome. So will you tell the folks at home who also are really interested in supporting the kind of work that you do and getting in there and really helping people, how they can join your team?
Yeah, well, we'd obviously love to have you join our team. One of the things that Danielle talked about is our ability to be there. And we're there because we're part of the communities. We have 150,000 volunteers from all sorts of different backgrounds, about 70% military, first responders, what we call technically here kick-ass civilians, people like you that join the team and are ready to be trained and equipped, and you answer the call when people need help. And all you need to do is go to teamrubiconusa.org, and in the top right corner you're going to see a way to volunteer, and we'd love to have your name on the roster. We'll call on you when disaster happens, either in the local area or across the country, and in some cases for the people with specific skills across the world.
That is really awesome. Thank you for that. And so that it was teamrubicon.com. Did I have that right?
Teamrubiconusa.org.
Teamrubiconusa.org. Okay. I wanted to say that twice because I missed it, which means our folks at home might miss it, and I want to make sure that they know just where to go. That is awesome. Well, we love giving to your mission, and we love supporting what you do. And this month has been especially exciting around here because we have been celebrating National Preparedness Month. We've been doing all sorts of deals on our products, giving people lots of great information. And today we really wanted to talk about some simple, easy, just 5 big things that you can do at home to help you prepare for a natural disaster so that you can be more prepared. And I thought you guys would be great at being just the right people to help bring that information to our folks. Would you be willing to help out with that, Art?
I'm not just willing to help, but I think I'm eager to help, because if you're prepared, the likelihood of it really becoming a disaster for you or for your community lessens, because again, you're ahead of the game. So you just let me know when you want to hear about these 5 tips, and I'm ready to rock and roll.
All right, Art, I believe we have some slides up so that folks can play along at home, and I'm just going to let you take it away.
Yeah, well, let's first go, against this backdrop. So 2020, we're coming off of the worst hurricane season in recorded history, essentially, for North America. So that's just the backdrop of what's happened. In 2021, it's continued. We'd have incredible natural disasters, that have stressed our power grid. It wasn't that long ago that Texas was frozen and we were experiencing all sorts of, different problems, disasters, things that overwhelm a local community. And we're seeing them in Texas. We're seeing droughts out west. We were seeing floods and tornadoes in the Midwest. We've seen a spate of hurricanes across 2020 and 2021 that have impacted the Gulf Coast. Heat waves, droughts, all of these things exacerbated. And against that backdrop, we have this global disaster called COVID, which is impacting every element of our lives and our communities' lives. So that's the context around these 5 different things, which I'm going to share with you. And again, the key here is to be ready. Hope is a terrible strategy if you're going to deal with natural disasters or humanitarian crises. So being prepared, putting that time up front, making the people that you love, that you connect with, understand what these few minutes or hours to collect the goods and, to take a look at some of the different things that 4Patriots can offer, how critical they'll be for enabling your ability to endure and be successful in the face of disaster. So these are the 5 tips that I would recommend that we look at. And again, September is the perfect month to do it, National Preparedness Month, as we go through there. So the first one is you have to learn of your past and current hazards in your area. Now, this can be as simple as, if you've been a longtime resident, you know what your weather cycles look like. You know what types of things you might experience. If you're out west, it might be a fire. If you might be in Nashville, coincident with what you have. And we've seen fires there. We've seen floods. We've seen tornadoes. We've seen winter events. So all of these things are things you need to understand how they could impact you and have an awareness for the natural and man-made threats specific to where you live. And I say these man-made are added in there because it's not just about what Mother Nature may dish out. It's how things like, natural drainage systems being clogged or, concrete replacing, areas that used to absorb water. All of these things come to play, and they're part of your calculus as you prepare yourself and your family and ideally your community for what might happen. So that's the first point around, learning about your past and current hazards in your area. The second is to understand the emergency resources that are available to you and your community. Every one of these communities should have a stash, or they should have materials. They should have things that are available either before, during, or after these natural disasters. And you have to understand those resources because, again, you don't understand where they are and how they fit into your personal preparation and puzzle, you're going to be missing pieces when the time comes. And that's certainly something that is going to cost you in recovery time or your ability to mitigate against damages. All of those things come into play. And, really, really important here is to identify if you live in a flood-prone area. And you may think that you do not live in a flood-prone area, but as we saw recently in places like New York, a hurricane that struck in Louisiana, just west of New Orleans, would end up wreaking incredible damage and actually taking more lives in New York and New Jersey. So again, it's that 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 chance, but there's still a chance, and those are the types of things that I would urge you to ensure you prepare for. So the first tip out of the 5, number 1, learn of past and current hazards in your area. Let's go to the next slide and talk about the second. Now, coupled with learning about, these past and current hazards in your area, part of being successful as an individual, as a family, as a community member is knowing and acting when it's time to leave. So knowing your evacuation routes is just this common approach and this common sense, planning factor that you have to have up front. And these can happen at a micro level and a macro level. And at the micro level, it might be something, from a preparedness standpoint, if you live out west, from an earthquake perspective. What am I going to do if there's a big shake to get out of my house, to get out of my building, to get out of the apartment I'm staying at, or maybe a hotel? You map the quickest ways out of that exit from your home, the neighborhood, or the community. It might be broader. You might live on the Gulf Coast. You may see a tropical depression, that continues to increase in intensity, rapid intensification, as we've seen over a number of the past storms. And you have to have the ability to understand how you're going to exit the problem. And it's not just about the evacuation route. It's also about understanding the things you will need to be able to do it successfully. Your materials, your records, having gas in the car, ensuring that you have a vehicle that's capable of doing that. All of these things come into play. And then you also have to have a secondary plan to make sure you have these alternate routes pinned down for as you go through this. Remember that in that moment, when someone pulls that alarm, everyone is rushing for the door, and you have to be ready to do it. So these routes, the planning factors, listening and understanding, again, as part of that, the people that are going to be able to help you and inform you in this time, be it local emergency managers, police officers, your local government. Those are all very important resources to make sure you do number two right, which is know and plan for your evacuation route.
Now, this one hits near and dear to my heart, I have to tell you, because we had a large flood here in Nashville in 2001, and we learned the hard way that all routes out of my neighborhood flood when there's a big flood. And so we were all stranded in my neighborhood. So this one, number two, I have to say, is very important to me. So we had to do some workarounds for that one.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really fantastic point that you bring up here, Danielle, is it's not just knowing the evacuation routes, but it's knowing how a disaster may impact the validity of that disaster route. We see it especially out west during fires. It takes one wind shift or change or jumping a fire line to make a previous plan invalidated. And we've seen those horrific scenes of people in cars driving down burning, with streets surrounded with burning trees. Those are the types of things you want to avoid. And again, part of that is time as well. It's not just knowing your evacuation route, but knowing when to leave, because perhaps, my guess, if your neighborhood's going to flood again, Danielle, you're going to leave well before that flood even occurs. So thank you for that wonderful.
Definitely be early leavers. Thank you. Okay.
Do you have any questions or anything so far, Danielle, that I might be able to dig a little bit deeper on, again, on those first 2 points? Learn the past and current hazards and know your evacuation route.
I've been thinking really hard about this. So I'm thinking as you're going along and planning for my own self, and really thinking about how I would address that personally for my home and for my family. So I'm playing along and I'm learning a lot, and I know the folks at home are. Do we have any questions from anyone else? Not so far on the chats. But guys out there in Facebook world, if you do have questions for Art as we go along, go ahead and just type those in the chat, and I bet we can get those answered for you. Well, I think we're good for right now. Thank you, though.
Well, cool. That's great. Let's jump on to 3 then. So number 3, again, in learning past and current hazards in your area. Number 2, knowing the evacuation routes, is know the location of the utility shutoffs in your home. This is particularly pertinent out west. We just had an earthquake 5 miles away from my house, last week, and it can break water lines, it can break gas lines, it can cause, the images we see below across the country. We've seen it most recently in Louisiana, where, power lines were toppled like matchsticks. You need to know where in your house these things are. And if you can't find them in this blue sky environment where there is no storm and there's nothing going on, and you have the luxury of being able to roam around and ask people, you're certainly not going to do it when the rain is blasting in your face, or right after a shake when your adrenaline's pumping. So this is something, again, like the other 2, that you practice and you prepare for early. And then you have to learn how to interact with them, at least learn how to turn them off, natural gas in particular, knowing what to do if a power line falls down, avoidance, and not just you, it's about your children and the other people in your community to know this. The tips that are down there, gas leaks, electrical fires, and flooding from broken pipes, those will literally wreak havoc on a home and exacerbate your disaster. So anything you can do up front to mitigate those are going to be incredible, and they're going to help you limit the damage, and they're going to keep the people like you and the ones you love safe. So please make sure that's part of your preparedness plan, is ensuring that you know the location of utility shutoffs, in your home. And if you have neighbors that might be older, or they might be disabled, remember that part of community is ensuring that it's not just about the me, it's about the we. So take the time to ensure that the people, they might be your next door neighbors, also understand these different things that can be done. So that's number 3, and if we don't have any questions, let's move on to number 4.
I think we do have a quick question. Hold on just a second for me. All right, let's go find out what that is. Oh, so someone asked about apartments. So maybe if you own your own home, you'll know where your gas shut off and your water shut off and your electrical box is. But how would someone living in an apartment or a multi-person complex find out about that kind of information?
Yeah, I think it's number 1 is you have to talk to the complex managers. It should be something that's rehearsed. It should be something that's understood. And anyone who's seen the scenes of a burst pipe on the 3rd floor and watched the people on the ground floor really suffer because of it, because someone didn't understand how to turn off a water main. If you've seen people who've talked about getting in an elevator when they shouldn't, or if you've seen people rush up the stairs to try to inventory if everyone's evacuated properly, those are the types of things, again, coupled with bullet 3 here, knowing the location of the utility shutoffs within your home or your complex, that are really going to help, lend itself to success as you move forward. So wonderful question, whoever asked that.
Thank you, Art. I know exactly what I'm going to do when I get home tonight. Know where my gas meter shutoff is, because everything else I've got covered, but I actually don't know where mine is. So I'm feeling behind the times here. I'm a bad representative of preparedness right now.
Yeah, one of the things you're going to find when you get out there, Danielle, is you also need a different type of tool. I've got one zip tied to our gas meter. It's right actually behind my head. That I can take this tool and know that I'll be strong enough to just break through that zip tie, and the tool is literally right next to where I need it. And there's all sorts of those things that are available to you. Something to shut off your water main is an example, that little T handle. Have that in your garage in a place where you can know you're going to need it, just like you would for a fire extinguisher, as an example. So let's go ahead and go to our next one, which is, hey, you've made it through, right? The other thing you have to do is you have to make sure that you have the materials to sustain you and your family after the disaster strikes. And this is one of those things where 4Patriots does an incredible job of being able to put this together so you don't have to deal with it. And it's an incredible thing you do. Number 1, ensure that the survival food you have has a long shelf life that's ideal to ensure that you and your family are equipped to make easy meals in the case of power outages or grocery store shortages. As someone who was in the military for 22 years, meals ready to eat are not the most desirable meal ever, but they're certainly the most easy to prepare. And they're certainly the ones that have the longest endurance. And they're certainly the ones that are designed around caloric intake, taste that's going to give you the sustenance you need to be able to do these things. It's so, so important to take care of you as that machine that is really going to power you through the natural disaster, to make sure you have that. In addition, you have to make sure that you have a water source. A lot of this stuff doesn't happen without water. FEMA recommends 1 gallon per day. So you need to make sure that you have that available as you do that. So make sure that you have water, as well as all of that stuff. For FEMA and Red Cross, have at least 3 days worth of survival food on hand in case of an emergency. Understand what you're going to have right away that's in the refrigerator that you need to consume. Understand what's available in the pantry. And this is going to sound really crazy, but have a can opener. The number of times these stories about people in disasters that are staring at cans and trying to figure out how they're going to get the food out of it is simply incredible. This, just like the other ones, a lot of this approach is predicated on an understanding that what you believe will be your source of sustenance may be cut off. Those roads may be blocked off. You may be like Danielle and go, whoa, it's a flood. I'm safe here, but I can't get anywhere else. So having this survival food tucked away, ready to go, and making sure it's valid from an expiration standpoint and that you can get to it is incredibly important as you move forward. So please, number 4, plan for emergency food beforehand. Anything to add on that, Danielle?
Now, I think most of our folks are right on with you with this. They've heard it from me. They've talked about survival food. They're good with food. But thank you so much for saying it, because just coming from me maybe doesn't have quite the impact as coming from both you and I. And our folks will believe it and know that they've done a great job if they already have survival food on hand. And if they don't, they'll be like, yes, I have one more person telling me. I'm going to make sure that I am set and prepared. So thank you for that. I think we're on question 3 for now.
Yeah, and this falls into that category of, do things. There's 2 things that happen after a natural disaster. You either say, I wish I had, or I'm glad I did. Food and water will fall into the I'm glad I did, regardless of if the disaster impacts you or not, because it gives you comfort in knowing you can sustain yourself and the people you love if something should happen. So again, plan for emergency food and water beforehand. Let's go to number 5. One of the things that is just really, really tragic for people that have survived, and we've seen it most recently with respect to Hurricane Ida, is people end up using things that end up poisoning them. Grills to heat homes, generators that aren't properly ventilated. So I cannot stress this enough. You're prepared. Select a fume-free generator that isn't going to introduce dangerous contaminants into your environment. Make sure it's foolproof. Test it. Make sure it can power all of those things you're going to need, from medical devices to laptops, phones, during this blackout. Time and time again, it's not just the storm that is causing these tragedies. It's what people are doing in the wake of the disaster, because most of their normal infrastructure is gone. The power is out. You don't have gas to the furnace. You're doing all of these things. The heater isn't working, as we saw in Winter Storm Uri. You have to make sure that you're keeping your house and you're doing it in a manner where it's safe as you move forward. So, those are the 5 things, Danielle, that I cannot stress enough that are going to allow you and your people to be ready. Number 1, prepare, prepare, prepare. Hope is a terrible game plan. Make sure that you're strategically envisioning what it looks like. Make sure you're planning and rehearsing what things need to be done to make sure you're going to be successful. So I'll turn it over to you, back to you. Learn the hazards, know your evacuation routes, know the locations of your utilities. I know you're going to do that, Danielle. Make sure you've got the right food, which, again, 4Patriots does an incredible job of making that available, and ensure that you're using a fume-free generator. Those are our 5 points that I think are really, really going to help keep people safe. They're going to help you prepare for the disaster that may come up, and they're also going to ensure that you are part of the solution instead of part of the problem, and that's preparedness and resiliency at its finest. So thank you again for having us, and certainly for all of the support you provide.
Well, thank you. I definitely feel smarter about what's most important. We talk about preparedness all the time. I go through lists all the time about, what I should do and get things going. But to hear you, as someone who has seen the aftermath of disaster and really firsthand had to help people through it, it's really important for me to hear that from you, so that I know what I can do to help my family, what everyone at home can do to help themselves and their families, make it sure they're not one of the statistics on this. And so thank you for that. Thank you for your time today. We're so glad you were here. We are going to continue to support Team Rubicon. We love the work you do. And I hope folks at home go check out your website, find out how they can help. Let me check with my team and see if anybody else has any more questions before I let you go. How can folks get involved in their local areas? So how to get involved with Team Rubicon is my guess. So I think you went through that already once, but remind folks one more time.
Yeah, and again, you can enroll through teamrubiconusa.org, become a Gracier. But I think more importantly, right, we are one entity in this emergency management process. Being prepared as an individual and contributing to the readiness and the resilience of your neighborhood is probably the greatest thing we can ask. You know, one of the things we find is you're helped or you're a helper. If you're preparing and you're doing these 5 things that we talked about, if you're kind of using that vision that your organization imparts on people, you know, again, designed around preparedness, you become part of the solution, you become part of resilience. So number one, your individual acts, your preparedness is something that Team Rubicon would love for you to do. If you're able now, in the aftermath of that storm, because again, you've been able to survive, you've been able to endure, and you've found the resilience, now you can actually turn and help speed the recovery of your community, which is the greatest thing, you know, we want people to go back to work. We want kids to get back into their schools so they can do the things they're supposed to do. We want to resume normalcy, and we want to certainly ensure that everyone in the community has the ability to go back home to a safe environment.
And we want that for everyone too. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody here in Facebook world for joining us. I hope you feel as educated and ready and have a working plan for yourself and for your neighbors. I love that idea of helping all of your neighbors and your community and the people that would support you in those times to help them be ready and be able to be supportive. I think that's a wonderful way to think about that. And that's something that's important to me. And I'm glad again that you've mentioned it. You're just feeling simpatico on this. I love it. Oh, well, thank you again, one more time for coming, sharing your expertise and your information. I think that's all we have for today. I hope everybody is prepared for National Preparedness Month. They go out there, they get themselves ready, and they can face the rest of the year with comfort and just knowing that they are ready for whatever comes their way. Have a great day, Art. Thank you again, and I hope to see you some other time and join us here at 4Patriots.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.